Let's see if the stream pops up real quick. Make sure everything's going well. It looks like it. Okay. And then we'll go share that onto after hours. If you're tuning in, watching this as a video, just give us some patience here as we get this set up. Okay. Good to go. Let's see who all's joining up real quick. One viewer so far. It's because we're a little bit off on the time. Just give it a minute here.
Let me.
Okay. Got 5 people watching now. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I mean, people will leak in as we go. What's up, guys? We've got Yarnik, Lick, Anthony, Jacob. Welcome, guys, to the chat. Let me make sure I can hear your voice real quick. Go ahead and test real quick.
Yeah. Hello.
What's up, guys? We've got Yarnik. Yeah, just give it a second. Let me make sure your voice is sharing. What happened to Master today? We're about to go over that.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Oh my goodness.
Okay. Yeah, your voice is sharing. We're live. Okay. So, obviously, guys, let's go ahead with the introduction. Obviously, I'm day zero with the face cam and everything going. We've got the live chat up and everything. Thank you for the subscription as well. And obviously, I'm on after hours with you guys, and uh, I'm a MicroStrategy bull. I'm an overall just orange pill bull, as well as you know overall just seeing oil and natural gas and American businesses and the U.S. dollar going up with the new administration coming in. Not politically, just due to the way that they handle the stock market. So that's my synopsis. You can go ahead and introduce yourself as well now.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Nathan. You can use my first name. That's totally fine. And I am a longtime trader. I've been doing this as a hobby, sort of, for almost 10 years now. And really, I my approach to all of this stuff, my thesis is pretty continually like I look at the current state of of the situation, and I'm always looking for outsized value plays. And when I find one, I leverage into it. And that has been really successful for me for the last couple of years. Really successful for me this year. So we're going to talk through that a little bit. We're going to talk through some of the current events in the news and the things that we think are coming here. And answer some questions, get some thoughts, make a little small talk and chat.
Awesome. So obviously Bitcoin and I'm just gonna start off here. Obviously Bitcoin and MicroStrategy are both down today, and that will be addressed later in the video for you guys. We're gonna go over all those sorts of stocks, all those sorts of because obviously MicroStrategy is stock, and then the crypto with the Bitcoin and everything like that. It's already recovered a little bit from where it was earlier when it bottomed out. I believe. How low did it go earlier? Let's see. 92?
Oh, it was not pretty.
92.7. But I guess we could start off with something light. Let's see if there's any questions in the comments just to that someone's already asked.
Yeah, Anthony says, "Can you take us through your option strategy? Be cool to see you do a mock trade in real time." I think that that's a great idea. We'll probably get to that because depending on who you are and how you do things, it's a little different person to person. But I think we both sort of share some traits there, and it'll be interesting to walk through.
Perfect. And then they're saying your mic is mint, I think. Either yours or mine. Mine's pretty low compared to yours. Okay.
Yeah, sorry
Hopefully,
about that.
hopefully mine sounds better now. Can you hear me pretty well through Discord?
Yeah, you sound great. You sound a little quiet, but you're very clear, so that's good.
Okay,
Glenn
that's
has a great question. With Trump's tariff threats to Canada, sounds like I need to move my CAD savings to USD. Assuming this makes the USD stronger. Good question. I'm not an economics expert. I do not know what this is going to do to anything. I don't
so
know if anybody has fully internalized North American tariffs as a possibility here. The thing that has been like going through my mind, and we should all obviously say all the classic stuff, right? But like the interesting thing about the pattern with almost all of these strategies is they are all sort of inflationary toward the U.S. dollar, right? It would be very difficult to envision a situation where cost of living is not raised by adding tariffs. That's just the way tariffs happen to work. Same thing with policies where you are cutting taxes in upper tax brackets. Just general tax cuts in general. They make everyone have more money, which makes inflation go up. So that's one of the reasons I think that besides just the fact that crypto is having a real bull moment with deregulation, I think that's the other reason why people are so bullish on things like Bitcoin right now is that um, fixed supply is suddenly very, very appealing again to a lot of people and is starting to resonate with retail traders again in a big way. I mean, also people are seeing people get rich off MicroStrategy calls, which helps. But I think that this is a really interesting thing that just basically broke as we got on is that there's some questions about new kinds of tariffs happening here, and this is you know we'll see what happens. This stuff evolves pretty rapidly. We know that from last time around that Trump policies have shifted a lot. So we'll see what happens this time.
definitely. And just going into that article from NBC News that I have pulled up, Trump says he plans to enact new tariffs on Canada, China, and Mexico on his first day in office, with an imposed 25 tariff on products imported in Mexico and Canada. So that potentially means that China's tariffs will be higher.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Of course, at one point, 100% was floated. The the Mexico one is obviously very interesting because so much car
Cars.
manufacturing,
Yeah.
right? Uh, this puts General Motors and Tesla at big advantages there. It's very interesting and intriguing. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds with this one. Time will tell, I guess.
So jumping into not just options, but trading in general, right? Let's shift the question over more towards why you're here. So go ahead and explain kind of your journey, not just this year, but in general with the stock market. Uh, and I'll go over my strategies as well as you can go into your strategies. I'd like for you to specifically go into your growth.
Yeah, yeah.
With, Go
So
ahead.
I started trading stock, recreationally when I was a kid, probably too young to be trading. My parents were both in the sort of investing world at the time for their full-time jobs. So this is sort of what I was raised on. I was taught how to trade basically the same time I was taught how to read and write. And that sort of has been a constant influence in my life. But for the last 10 years or so, I've been going really deep on this stuff as sort of a hobby and treating it like a hobby, which means that proportional to my actual income and personal financial situation, I never have in my recreational trading account, the account I interact with daily, more than I can absolutely afford to lose and not really feel it. And I'm very fortunate that that amount has grown over time. But that's an important tenet of what I do because, and I want to emphasize that before we go any further, because the kind of outsized gains I had in the last year or so would not be achievable if I weren't also willing to have outsized losses. And I
Right.
have sort of a strategy that makes that possible, but that's the thing that comes with it. So this year I started in the account that you would see on TradingView. So my username on TradingView is Gainal Retentive, and you can look up my profile on there. But the account that makes up most of the portfolio you see on TradingView this year, it started at like 38,000 or something, and now it's up to about 172. And this was not done. Asterisk. This was not done just with the big memes, right? I trade memes. I unapologetically trade memes, but I don't usually trade memes while other people are trading memes. And my strategy has been really about growing by spotting small scale, high value plays that last maybe a week or two, and leveraging into them in a big way. So in that same time frame, how did the S&P do? I think I outpaced it. Well, I can say that facetiously. Yeah, 4x outpaces the S&P. But
Yes.
this is not realistic for every year pretty consistently. But like, you know, um,
What year did you start?
this is a strategy that's worked. You know,
What year did you start trading?
I started trading probably 2014.
In 2014, right? The S&P 500 was at what, 2000 points? So it's more than doubled since
Yeah,
then?
yeah. Uh, and but of course, the period that we're comparing against, that we want to benchmark against here, is from
Right.
about May of 2024,
Okay.
when I started the current active portfolio that's on after hour to
Okay.
now.
So '05 of 24, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So the S&P was at 4,400. Oh wait, no. That was not right. So the S&P was at about 5,600 points. Now it's at about 5,900, about to peak at 6. So that's a pretty good gain from the S&P 500. To just put your money in and just have an automatic buy and just hold for years. But uh, that's less than 20% compared to, I mean, how much percentage gain have you gotten since then?
almost. We plotted this out earlier. It was almost 300, right?
Right about
38 over. Yeah. A little, even maybe a little more than that. So this strategy happens to have been very good to me in this particular window of time.
Right, and in
Yeah,
that same period of time, which I mean, I started a little bit later than you with a little bit less money, obviously. I started with about $2,800. This is day zero speaking, by the way, anyone tuning in. Um, I started with about $2,800, and I have accrued some heavy losses and some heavy gains. And I've turned that $2,800 into about, on my account right now, about $22,000 on that same account.
I mean, and that's pretty good.
And that's
Now,
in
of
about
course,
that's in 2 months.
yeah, right. So this is the thing right now. The market has basically lost its mind over the last couple months, which is an important asterisk on all of this. Is that
As you can
none
see
of
on the
this is
chart.
possible in a sane market. But
And
you know,
really, if you're looking at this chart on the S&P 500 though, I mean, it's really been insane since 2010. I mean, if you're looking at the stream, right?
yeah.
Since 2010, the S&P's been on a humongous run compared to the decades before that, right? Like if you're sitting here looking at it, like the volume is just ridiculous. And the
Uh,
price increase over time, and partially due to inflation, especially when it comes to, if the S&P 500 has a 20% rate per year, then all of a sudden it jumps up to 35% rate during a bad economy. I mean, that's just due to mostly to inflation, but
12%, which is what we used to compute this as and estimate this as and assume that that's what it was going to be, was already madness. Like, if you
yeah,
zoom out and you look at from 1900 to present, there's a clear inflection point, obviously, where currency becomes fiat. And there's all sorts of great things that happen because of that, and all sorts of not great things that happen because of that. But one thing it did mean is that was around the time when like explosive growth became possible. Manufacturing in other countries became a big thing for all the things in the S&P. So the market's been nuts basically for all of our lifetimes, but it's becoming more nuts every day. And it is hard to imagine. Glenn, the comparison is 100% right. This reminds me of April of 2020. It really does. And that makes a lot of sense. I think some of it is because of, um, uh, gosh, the vigor for deregulation, right? Like there's a lot of that going on. I think a lot of it is because there's sort of a Me Tooism that's happening now, especially in the retail sector. And I also think a lot of it is just because, we're having a big moment where there's like something that looks like large technical advancement, and people always ape into that stuff. And we always regret it a little later, but it takes some time to get there. You've always been able to go on E-Trade or whatever. Well, not always, but like for a long time, and you used to be able to call your broker and used to be able to buy things yourself. But like it's so trivial now to get on board with something, and I think that has tremendous impact. A lot of the trading I do, almost all the trading I do now, is adversarial with retail traders. Like I look at things and I go, how am I going to get ahead of retail? I'm not thinking, how am I going to get ahead of Jane Street or whatever? I'm not. I'm going to lose to Jane Street every time. So. Yeah. Yeah, we could call our broker. So, yeah. Uh, should we get into a couple specifics? Take a look at things, try and figure things out. I'm happy to talk through, any interesting trades, any interesting sort of things that have happened in the last couple months.
Let's start with MicroStrategy. I feel like that's what
Yeah,
everybody's kind of wondering about. I'm not gonna, you know, for the lack of better term, blue ball them and just hold them throughout the stream for
yeah.
it. Like, let's go
No,
ahead and
let's
get
talk
the
about it.
elephant out of the
Let's talk
room.
about MicroStrategy. Let's talk about Bitcoin. Let's talk about all this stuff because this is where the action is right now. Absolutely.
So on
All right.
TradingView, it says key fact today: MicroStrategy acquired 55,500 Bitcoin today, raising its total to 386,700 Bitcoin.
Right.
This,
And of course, this is all sort of entwined with the bond issuing that happened, right? Like this is a very complicated picture. There are a couple great folks on After Hour that are talking about this very actively right now. I would encourage you, if you don't already follow Sergey, to go follow Sergey. Watch his great video that he put out earlier this week on what it means for MicroStrategy to be doing this kind of thing. There's all sorts of interesting questions, at least to me, about what it means to be like as heavily leveraged in as MicroStrategy is, and as heavily leveraged on MicroStrategy as all of us are as we're trading this thing. It's we are trading MicroStrategy at a substantial premium to their holdings, which makes some sense, right? Because the premium is basically the stewardship, and it's a powerful thing. But what happens then is that the confidence of the trading becomes shakeable, and I think that's what's been so interesting about this today. Has been we had strong bullish news about MicroStrategy. We had a weak Bitcoin market, but not as weak as it was for MicroStrategy, really, when you look at the chart, right? Do you happen to have that chart that pairs them up handy? If not, we can drop a
MicroStrategy.
screenshot.
So I have MicroStrategy as well as Bitcoin both just right next to each other. So I mean, you can see the parallel pretty easily.
Right. And there's the macro movements of these two charts are super parallel to each other, right? But the thing that's sort of intriguing to me, and there's actually another one that we can throw in that I think makes this even more intriguing. I'm going to give away all my best secrets here. Um, if you look at these two next to each other, let me see if I can just
Shoot me over something.
drop a screenshot on Discord, actually. All right. Yeah. So let's just look at. Here we go. Let's just look. If you check Discord.
Got it pulled up.
All right, great. So if you look here, this is Bitcoin on the bottom, MicroStrategy on the top. Do you have? Did my image send?
Yes, yes. It's lagging on the stream.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we got Bitcoin on the bottom, MicroStrategy on the top, and what you'll notice is absolutely this is a 5-day, I believe. You'll notice absolutely there's some correlation happening here, right? Like the highs are high and the lows are low, and you can see that, and you can also see, of course, they are very leveraged highs and very leveraged lows. But what you'll notice is also there's this additional movement in the MicroStrategy chart, even beyond the fact that there are different kinds of charts. But there is if you start going in and looking at some of these areas, realize what you can see happening in many of these cases. You can see sort of confidence shake in the elevation of the price of MicroStrategy, and then suddenly there's a ton of profit taking, and then MicroStrategy's back, and then there's some profit taking, and it just goes back and forth like this. This is very compelling and intriguing from sort of a strategic perspective. It's very difficult to predict this action. I don't know how I would do it, but there are opportunities here, especially if you find a way to trade this in a pair, right? That then reduces your exposure to big drops like we had today in Bitcoin potentially. So this is a very interesting situation where we've got this highly leveraged instrument that's behaving like it's a derivative of Bitcoin, but it's just a stock you can buy and sell freely, and buy and sell in after-hour pools, which is not something that you have an opportunity for with a lot of this stuff, right? You have an opportunity with Bitcoin,
Yeah,
but
it's 24 hours, right?
um, yeah, but like this is an unusual situation that I'm certainly excited to pay more attention to going forward. I don't know what the next week or two is going to hold. I'm of the belief that by January, mid-January probably, we will break the 100K barrier.
Do
I
you
have
think
no question.
MicroStrategy, sorry, do you think MicroStrategy actually predicted that Bitcoin wasn't going to hit 100,000 and the huge sell-off was ill confidence in Bitcoin hitting $100,000? Because I mean, it got pretty close, but at the same time it was getting pretty close, MicroStrategy was bearish while
Yeah,
Bitcoin
this
was
is an
in a bullish trend.
I think this is a very intriguing possibility. We need to do some looking here to see if that's a routine pattern that holds up. I would potentially believe that because of the nature of MicroStrategy and that people buy into this thing a little earlier, anticipating gains in Bitcoin, and they try to buy into it a little later, anticipating, or buy out of it early, anticipating potential drops. That this is actually kind of an effective bellwether for sentiment in crypto, and that's a compelling sort of way to use this too. That has to get explored more. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, because we can kind of see this correlation between it looks like at its high, at MicroStrategy's high, it thought it was going to hit $100,000 and then quickly realized that it wasn't going to. And from that point, it just down spirals. It had a little bit of recovery, but then it just continued down spiraling, even while Bitcoin kept on pushing higher, and even while Saylor was continuing to buy Bitcoin. Uh, do you think that Saylor buying Bitcoin was somewhat indicative? Because looking at a chart, it's the MicroStrategy tracking chart. Sailor tends to buy when it's trending up. Like he tends to buy right when it's at an all-time high, or he tends to buy at the top of a hill. Um, and I've noticed that. Let's see if I can pull up that correlation here, because that would be interesting. But yeah, you can go ahead and speak about anything on your mind while I'm pulling that up.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about all of this is that uh, so when we look at a thing like MicroStrategy, a ton of the momentum for this thing is fueled on speculation just for raw crypto, right? And one of the interesting things that sort of puts MicroStrategy at an interesting point right now is that their primary product really is that speculation, and it is the fact that you are trading on a normal stock exchange with normal stock exchange rules and are able to use normal stock exchange derivatives to do this work. And that opens up a whole audience of potential traders, not just in retail, especially not just in retail, but in funds, to the opportunity to sort of expose themselves to this stuff and to construct sort of synthetic positions that hedge against certain situations with, combinations of puts, calls, and shares. This is probably something that is going to become even more sort of diminishing in terms of its future uniqueness because because if we're entering into an era of the SEC where it becomes much easier to build ETFs around crypto, or it becomes much easier to trade crypto in general, there's going to be less of a need for a thing like MicroStrategy that's kind of this unique beast that was just basically artificially created this way. Hunsberger, great question. Thoughts on Recursion? We will talk about Recursion Pharmaceuticals for sure, because
There
this
we
has
go.
been
That's a
something
good one
that,
too.
for obvious reasons, we've had our eyes on it for a while. It is impossible to use after hour without thinking about Recursion. So yeah, let's definitely chat about what happened to Recursion today too. Yeah,
But as far as Bitcoin going up, I mean, obviously there's the U.S. Reserve that's going to be most likely set up. It's in their policy agenda. So there's that. Crypto in general isn't being considered for that. It's Bitcoin, so that's very important to go ahead and mention that
yeah.
strategic reserve. So
All
once
right,
the
let's see.
United States government starts buying it, there is an interesting concept with that though, because the whole point of Bitcoin was to not be institutionalized and not to be used by governments. But as Sailor, so that's the first thing that comes up as a red flag, right? Is like, oh, this isn't supposed to be that kind of asset. But Sailor in the past, like I'm not saying like within the past week or two while he's been popular, I'm saying at the bottom of Bitcoin's bottom, he was saying like, "Oh, it's going to be okay. Eventually, governments are going to start getting, orange pilled. They're going to start loading up on this. Businesses are going to start loading up on this, and that's going to be healthy for Bitcoin." So, I mean, there is that. Like he already anticipated that years ago. You know what I mean? So, I don't see that as a
Yeah.
problem.
I mean, there's going to be so much thirst in all directions for fixed supply assets of any kind. I'm pretty bullish on gold, which had a very tough day as well, in general for similar reasons. Moving forward, I think all of these things are strong growth categories again. That's all in play. So recursion. Let's talk about recursion. Um,
Their
yeah. So
website's still
so
up.
up. Yeah, you can go back to the chart. The chart's fine.
Okay,
Um,
the chart for RX. Okay.
yeah, RXRX. That's fine. Uh, oh, a fancy website. That's what they're spending my money on.
Yeah.
Okay, so Recursion is a very interesting pharma company, right? And we've talked about them many times on After Hour. Of course, noted After Hour celebrity squeeze kid, big fan of Recursion. Um, so they're like many pharmacos, they are very heavily invested in AI. In fact, that's their whole brand now, and they have a lot of intriguing sort of pots in the fire for potential AI work that's still happening. We will see where this heads. Um, I am bullish on Recursion at $6. I think Recursion at $6 is probably a bargain, given I see the preponderance of situations where they will continue to exist in the medium term. Uh, Pharma stocks are a tough game to play. If you have ever spent any amount of time in a trading app looking at the top gainers and losers on the market on any given day, thinking, oh man, if I could catch just one of those, that would be huge. And you look at it and you fantasize about it, they're always pharmacos. And there's a reason for that. And it's because it is such a fickle industry, and you IPO or you start trading over the counter or whatever so early in pharmaceuticals, right? Like that, you are very early on needing to raise massive amounts of money. This is one of the easiest ways to do it, is to start trading. And these pharmacos, like they really, their entire existence hinges on eventually getting approval for something. This is almost always the case. And we actually saw today the other side of this recursion coin, which is that recursion, it keeps dipping up and down and up and down. And their big claim to fame is this backing with Nvidia. I have rarely seen a day where I haven't opened up E-Trade and seen my recursion shares and calls, up, 20%. And then by the end of the day, I have very rarely not seen them reclaimed. And I often think about just taking profit in that moment, because come on. But I don't know, right? Like, I think that recursion is a strong candidate here in an industry full of potential losers, right? That's the thing. I would love for them to be the winner, and I don't think there's no question in my mind that they have a strong chance at being a winner, much stronger than many of the other opportunities out there right now. I also think they're a strong, potential future retail meme candidate again. So keep your eyes on them. Keep your eyes on them. I think that there's a lot of possibility here, and they're a bargain at $6 again. I remember when they were 6-ish that I was very excited about them then, and I'm still excited about them at 6 now. Of course, the other side of this coin is today's big loser, which was Cassava, which we've got up somewhere in one of these pages, right?
We got it pulled up now.
Ah,
I can roll the stream.
you are ahead of me. So,
It's trading at
Cassava
$4,
Pharmaceuticals.
4.29, down
Yeah,
22.18 today, negative 83.78%.
yeah. So,
Its analyst rating is
yeah,
a buy, funny enough.
I think that might be dated
It might have been
information.
outdated by a day or two.
Yeah. So Cassava's been, I believe that the term that they use in the finance reporting industry for a stock like this is embattled. They've been through a lot. I'm not going to talk about the legal issues because I'm not educated enough to talk about the legal issues. I'm going to get in a world of trouble. But of course, today the big news was that their trials sort of fell through for the Alzheimer treatment that they were working on, and this is rough. Like this happens all the time with these pharmacos. This was one that had felt like it had bad vibes for a long time. But of course, one of the most brilliant short sellers in pharmacos in the world uh, is the one and only Martin Shkreli, who has plenty of other stuff going on. But one thing he's always been brilliant at is identifying when trials are in a bad spot and when a stock's about to tank. He did it routinely in a past life, and he's back doing it again. And he was campaigning over and over and over about how he believes that this one is doomed, and he was right. He was totally right. He nailed this prediction, and he nailed the timing. Good on him on that, and exclusively that potentially. But this is, this is a very interesting one, and I honestly, I am a little ashamed because I had been keeping my eye on Cassava for a long time after all the troubles they'd been in, and I was convinced that they were absolutely puts territory, and I didn't do it right. I was too chicken on this one, and I wish I hadn't been because when someone who is really good at this stuff opens their mouth and tells you what they're thinking, you ought to listen. I should have listened a little better on this one.
Yes, and then yeah, pharmaceuticals are tough. Someone just asked if you do leaps. Honestly, the stock is cheap enough. I just buy shares on
Yeah, so this is okay.
RXRX.
This is a great one. Is let's see if we can pull up. Do we have a way to pull this up? Can we pull up an options ladder on something? I don't know if we have a tool to do this. Um,
I can pull
if
it
we
up on
could,
Robinhood. I mean,
that's
what is
fine.
it?
Let's just pull it up on
RXRX?
Robinhood then. Yeah, RXRX. Pull up a ladder on RXRX.
And
So,
which date? What call? It's elite, random leap.
yeah, let's do 6 months out, which is not technically really leap territory, but it's close enough. I think we just want to do a little thought exercise here. I think this is always useful to sort of do
We'll do
this.
June 20th, 2025. That's about 6 months.
That sounds good. Yeah. So generally, if you're doing this kind of thing, what you'll do
So we do have
is,
options. So you can buy a $6 call for $1.95, and that's trading at $2 above, $1.80 above current share price,
yeah,
which
let's see if we can
is
make the math work here. The other
yeah.
thing that we want to look at here is the liquidity, right? So,
On which
oh gosh.
at share price or above share price?
Let's just do so maybe narrowly above, narrowly
Okay,
above.
so a $7 strike.
Yeah, let's do a $7 strike. Um, you'll have to forgive us for fumbling through on the Robinhood UI here over stream because A, I don't use Robinhood, and B, this is our first time doing this. um, So if we can figure out what I'm sort of interested in understanding here is like, is this a thing where we've got a massive distance between bid and ask?
No, bid
Uh,
is $1.45, ask is $1.60.
yeah, so it's
There's
getting kind of chunky, that distance, but that's yeah, there we go. Look at that. Okay. So there's some interest here. It looks like we've got some action happening on this. I wouldn't be too scared of this one. Now,
volatility's wild too.
right. So this is the thing. Let's take a look at multiply the delta by the current share price, which is about $6,
Right.
right? 348. What is this? Yeah, so you're not buying a lot of leverage there, right? You're buying like 2x ish leverage on this thing at
Right.
the current price, right? Keep in mind this is at the current price, right? So the mental math I did there is I multiplied the delta by the current share price to get a dollar delta. Then I took that dollar delta and I used that against the current share price, and that should give you roughly a leverage ratio. I believe people sort of in slang would call that like a lambda, which is not one of the traditional Greeks, but like, whatever.
Yeah.
This is a tool that I use because I like to sometimes get an idea of what I'm actually paying for. Like you look at this thing and you go, what am I actually getting for the leverage? And sometimes you look at it and you just go, if it's 2x for that, am I really willing to spend, 50, 100% more, double the amount I spend, and know that I actually am sort of reducing my potential losses here? And uh, there's a lot of give and take with this stuff. And honestly, if you're doing this as a hobby, maybe you lean a little more vibes oriented, like I'm talking about here. But um, uh, this is yeah, it's hard to find absolutely anything about this stuff. So uh, I use this as a way to sort of gut check myself whenever I think I'm going to buy some naked calls. Because like if I'm not making a strategy out of them where I'm, hedging the call with something else, and I know the chances are strong, I'm going to lose 100% on this thing. I want to understand what I'm getting in exchange for losing 100%. So this is one strategy I use as a gut check. Other people have other strategies, but if you're just buying this stuff for leverage, like you would with your leaps, maybe you look at it and maybe you go, it's not worth it. Maybe you go, it is worth it. This one, actually, I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is not so bad. This is not so bad. It's a little tempting. And I know it's a little tempting because about 3 months ago, the picture was not so different, and I still own some December $7 calls that I didn't fully liquidate, which tells you I thought it was okay then. So this is an option. The other option is to just buy shares. Buy shares and sell covered calls is also a great option with something like this. Anthony
Now,
asks, how much money assets do you need in your account to trade options like a call or covered call? Great question, Anthony. If you have an account under $1,000 or so, I wouldn't recommend starting on trading covered calls or even just buying calls or options at all at this point yet, because you are gonna, gosh, it's a one-way ticket to a world of hurt, right? Like the amount of damage you can do to yourself with so much leverage so quickly, and worse, so much worse is when you have a winning trade, right? Like when you start out and your first trade with these instruments is successful, it the dopamine hit that gives you is so dangerous because you'll be chasing that for the rest of your life. So I would suggest start with just stocks. You can do incredible things with just stocks. I mean, Kevin, who dropped in for a moment and may already be gone because he's a busy guy. Kevin blew up in the good way, not the bad way, blew up in the good way his portfolio with just trading stocks, right? Now he went all in. I don't recommend that. Not everyone has the same technique.
that's what I did as
But,
well when I started off. So I
oh man,
jumped in with
oh man,
$2,800 and
oh man.
I said, you know what? My slow growth is not working. I want to exit the rat race. I want to use my intelligence to be able to get out of this. So I full ported and I made the money. So what did I do when I made the money? I pulled out of it and put it into stocks to sell covered calls.
Yeah. Well, so and that's the thing is right when you make the money, you gotta get out. You gotta get out. Um, get out while you're still in profit and sell or protect yourself almost immediately. You got to do it.
Because
Um,
this is my brother's port. So let's go. I manage it for him. So let's go over here. I only started about a month ago, November 8th. Obviously, I put him into MicroStrategy, so it's a little bit down today, but let's jump into his SoFi call, right? So, as a small portfolio, say you only had, let's see, what's my average cost? I got in for $88 on this, I believe. 0.88 should be $88. Now it's worth $3.70 per stock. That's a gain of $1,130, which is 322.86%. So, I mean, as a small portfolio, you could have just turned. I don't think those numbers are adding up. I was definitely off somewhere on that.
Yeah, well.
But
So
you get the
yeah,
point.
right. There are opportunities here. There are definitely opportunities here. Jake asks, do you have any good links to watch or books to read to understand how you view stocks and calls? Yes, Jake, I do.
Yes.
I have a book I think everyone should read called A Random Walk Down Wall Street. And it will be funny that I'm suggesting this is one of your first books to read about stocks because this book essentially says, don't try. Right. This is a book all about basically just how challenging it is to beat the market and just how much of what we see is essentially noise, and that like if you are trying to beat the market, what you're really chasing is you're chasing being optimal against noise, and it's very very challenging to do well. Um, I think that it is a fantastic read for anyone who's trying to explore this stuff. Um, you recommend this guy. I've never heard of this person, but they maybe they're great. I don't know. Yeah, I would suggest checking out someone like this who can give you some basics on options. Don't buy courses. Don't buy courses from anyone.
Don't buy courses ever.
I'm
It is
sure
a free
I'm
course.
sure there are great people who make courses. I've yet to meet one. But
Yeah,
I'm
no.
sure they're out there. Uh, but yes, here's the thing. Everyone thinks they're smarter than the market. Everyone thinks they're smarter than the market. I think I'm smarter than the market. I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. I
There's
know I'm
also a
not
good
smarter than
book.
the market.
What is it?
Uh,
What's that book? It's man, Babylon, something Babylon.
oh yeah, yeah. I know the one you're talking about.
But that book,
Uh,
I'll type it in and I'll get it on the screen. But you keep talking.
so the other thing that I really recommend, uh, is there is a YouTuber who was sort of born really out of the Wall Street Bets community named Benjamin, I think. And everybody watches the Benjamin videos, right? Uh, uh, um, uh, yeah, yeah. Jake remembers the name of this book. I don't think I've read that in years. I don't remember a thing about it, so I couldn't say one way or another what I think of that book. But um, uh, you know, the bottom line about a lot of this stuff is it pays to be a little conservative or to understand very carefully why you aren't as smart as you think you are. The high that people chase in this thing is often thinking that they've outsmarted the market. And you know what? It feels great to outsmart the market, but it's fleeting, and you have to insulate yourself from the fact that it's fleeting and be very, very careful. So that's why I keep emphasizing that for me, this is a hobby. What is Benjamin's channel? Is it just Benjamin? Surely
Not
he
too
doesn't own
sure.
Benjamin. Uh, Benjamin YouTube.
Let me know the name of it and I'll pull it up as well.
We will drop it in the chat because there is no way
Okay,
that
perfect.
you will be able to spell that right.
Okay, okay. You'll drop it in the chat. Just to go
Yeah.
off real quick, just to kind of update everyone on my situation. I was betting heavily on a trend reversal for Wolf Speed. And what sounds horrible, but it's okay. Basically, Wolf Speed had this run up, and it got super high, and everyone was excited, and I had a whole bunch of options, and I thought it was going to go up to $25. And then I rode the calls up. I rode the calls up from $150 that I started with on the stock up to about 4 grand. And I kept on rolling the to in from in the money calls to on strike, on strike, on strike as it kept on going up. this entire journey right here. And then, it got to the top. I sold off $3,500 of it, and then I let the rest ride, and it zeroed out. My options zeroed out. The ones I let ride completely down to zero. So that's why you take profit when you can, and you can leave some of it in, because I left like a third of it in there. But I mean, that's a prime example. And if I had would have bought stock instead, I mean, I'm sure Wolfspeed will. I mean, as the U.S.'s largest SiC provider, silicon carbide provider, um, and with these tariffs on China, I'm sure it'll go back up to $25. It'll have a little short squeeze. It always has these random periods where it'll short squeeze. But um, yeah, if I would have bought stock at $10, $12, $14, I wouldn't be at too much of a loss. But instead, I lost everything because I had it on options. So that's the difference between options and stock. In options, if you're wrong, you lose everything. In stock, if you're wrong, you have a little bit more of a barrier for it to go back up over time.
Yeah. Jake, another great question from Jake. He's on a roll here. So, when it comes to stocks and healthy companies, why do companies like DigitalOcean seem to be stagnant after the initial IPO, even though the company seems healthy? So, I would I would personally sort of gesture toward one particular thing to look at to sort of examine this and understand a little bit more about what's happening with the company, which is P to E ratio. And this is essentially the ratio that helps you understand where, like, what multiple of their earnings the stock is trading at. And there's a bunch of other measures that you can use for this, and some of them are better or worse in other ways. But like PE is a good thing to rough this out. You just get a quick snapshot look at what's going on. And a couple rules of thumb. It varies a lot by industry, but if you see a PDE in the 30s, that's often what a healthy company that is profitable and sort of growing at a reasonable clip will sort of sit at a PDE of about 30. That someone's probably in the chat or watching later freaking out going, are you kidding? It should be 14 or something. That's fine. That's reasonable. 30 is often seen in large caps in the market today. This is just how it often is. You'll notice DigitalOcean, though, is trading at about 46. 46 is sort of a halfway point in between the 30 that you often see with something that's
That's at
healthy.
$39. It IPO'd at about 47. So obviously its
Yeah,
PE
and
ratio when it IPO'd was just too high. That's what that
well,
is.
and so this does happen, right? And the thing is, 60 is often a PDE for a company that's sort of a quote unquote growth stock. You'll see things trading at 60 all the time in sort of the area where it's like, well, they have incredible stewardship and they have massive opportunities for the future. And, then you'll see 60, 70, sometimes even higher than that if things are going wild, right? 46 is in this middle zone where it's like, this is a sustainable company that's on the path to becoming a boring company that really will have to grow in a big way in order to sustain a P to E much higher than this, which means that there's not that much roof line for this to grow potentially. This is, again, like, this stuff is a matter of opinion and intuition. You will find there are people who are much better at this than me, who can go through their books and will tell you exactly why they're at 46. But this is my intuition from just a quick glance at where they're at right now. So I'm like, they're trading all right, but they're not going to explode based on the things I see now and the things I sort of know from intuition about that particular industry, right? Which is cloud hosting. And they're renting GPUs now, but everybody's renting GPUs, so I don't know how much that's going to hold. We'll see.
So obviously on the screen now I have RCAT. And if anyone in the comment section wants to bring up questions, we can start answering questions as well as different stocks. Anything, we're pretty open at this point. But I was gonna bring up RCAT just because the user on After Hour, I'm not gonna say it because the algorithm might pick it up, but it starts with a D and ends with a K. He threw out RCAT, right? And obviously he was right, and it skyrocketed in the last couple of days. But its 1 month ratio, it was at $2.76 before the contract announcement. Obviously, we can see build up and rumors for the news. Then you see the news break, and it took off higher. But obviously you see its steady growth, then you see the rumors, and then you see the news. So that's a
Yeah.
good.
This is
Go ahead.
these are fun to play with a little bit. I say play with, and I mean play with, right? Like the thing again that I want to emphasize is, I had pretty good growth in this portfolio that I put on after hour, and it's not a portfolio that's my primary portfolio. It's a playing portfolio, and I manage my scale in that portfolio very carefully to make sure I'm never staking everything on any of these things. You can do what you want, but I wouldn't. And it's fun to play with these. Often, when you see an announcement about a high profile contract with one of these things, you have about 24 hours to get in before it blows up. It's going to blow up a lot on the first day, but often you get a few days, and you can capture the second or third day before IV crush sets in, before you lose the opportunity here. Um, you know, it's it's an incredibly fun sort of opportunity with some of these, because you can see things just blow up, or usually they flatline, and you have a very contained loss if you use calls or something like that. I mess around with that sometimes. I messed around with that this week, this last week into this week with shoot. It was like one of my only green things today too.
And anyone that's on After Hour, I mean, I understand there might be some viewers tuning in just from YouTube's algorithm, but anyone that's on After Hour, I shouted out like I think it was like 30 to 40 smaller cap stocks under $25 to for that exact reason to play with. Some of them were penny stocks, some of them weren't, and I'm pretty sure 90% of those are all up at least 20 to 30% today. And with how red everything else was, they were all green. So that's another interesting point is small caps are all doing pretty well right now when it comes to non-pharmaceuticals, you know, non-proof of concept businesses is a good way to put that. Like you need a proof of concept, and then that's usually trials and stage three of their projects on pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
But,
Um, it's an interesting time for a lot of this stuff. I mean, things are wild, and it's all about the market going nuts again, right? And small caps are always the things that go most nuts. You just have to, it's hard to be betting in the right direction, so you never know. So Mega Zion says Nvidia options or knowledge on Nvidia. I used to trade a lot of Nvidia because I used to have a very good sense for the market's emotional reactions to Nvidia, and I could pretty consistently predict with very minimal use of technicals what was going to happen with Nvidia. I no longer have that capability at all. It trades flat. I look at it, I go, that looks flat to me. And then it corrects back and forth flat, and I never know which direction it's going to turn for sure. I have zonked myself doing this so many times that I've given up on trading Nvidia with my trading style. That doesn't mean
right.
you can't do it, but I have no insight there. The
If
other
you
one
can
we got,
acquire, real quick, if you can acquire 100 shares of Nvidia, I would suggest doing either a wheel strategy on Nvidia if you can get to that knowledge in options trading. It takes a little bit longer. Or you could do just simple out of the money covered calls to collect premium. I mean, even if it's not a large amount of money, if you're just holding Nvidia stock, you may as well get that extra premium. But
yeah.
like way out of the
So,
money, you know what I mean? Like,
and
go ahead.
this is actually a perfect dovetail into the next question in the chat, which is, would you say taking cash secured puts and covered calls really deep with minimum premiums is a solid way to generate some income? Yes and no. This is a great question. This is one of my favorite things in the world to think about, is particularly this area. And the wheel is like the classic example of that. For people who aren't familiar, the wheel is this idea. First of all, covered calls and covered puts. A cash covered put is when you say, I will sell you this put and agree that I'm going to buy the shares from you at that price, and then you have cash in your account to back that up, so that you just buy the shares, and then you lose whatever drop happens after that, but you make the premium of selling that quote unquote insurance policy for the other person if the stock drops beyond that point. Covered call, the other end, you've got the shares, and you say, I'll sell you the shares at this price if it gets there. The same thing, you're collecting the insurance premium on that thing. Fantastic. The catch on both of these things, right, is that the market is priced correctly. Right? In
Right.
in in on average, you will roughly be break even doing this. Now, that said, that's not entirely true because in truth, the market is not priced correctly, right? The market is priced slightly emotionally, and sometimes, often in fact, the market is priced slightly emotionally in your favor. So even though you will sometimes get called away, or you will sometimes be in a situation where, where your puts are going to get exercised, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong thing. Like the biggest problem people get into with things like the wheel is they start really leveraging themselves doing this kind of thing in creative ways, and they see it as free money, and it's not free. You're selling something, right? You're selling an insurance policy, and sometimes insurance has to pay out. So as long as you go into it with that mindset, you can keep accruing a little extra sort of fringe money on the side with these covered strategies. And in fact, wheeling can be a great option of one of these covered strategies, but you got to be careful. You got to be careful and be open-minded about the fact that it's not free. Eventually, you'll get called away. It's going to happen to you, and whether that's a problem for you or not is up to you. And Saturn, of course, raises the right point. Don't do this stuff on on pharmaceutical companies that are still going through FDA clearance.
No.
Right? Just don't. There are tiers of risk that you can be taking, and I wouldn't go straight for that personally. Jake asks, when you're looking at small caps. Jake says, when you're looking at small caps, where do you look in figuring out what to research deeper? Great question. There are a couple great videos on that YouTube channel that we pointed you to before. Also on Plain Bagel does a great job of this, going over just basically what is it like to research a company and to understand how it functions. If I can't figure out what a company is actually doing, where the product comes from, how they're going to get P&L, it's a no from me. Like there are lots of small caps or OTCs or pink sheets or whatever, and you look at this thing and you go, what are they even doing? It looks like this thing exists only as an object to be traded back and forth between people who are pumping it. So often it looks that way. I won't touch that stuff with a 10-foot pole. I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson on that a long time ago by losing a lot of money gambling on it. The truth is that unless you're moving some massive audience on a Discord or Telegram, manipulating the market illegally, you are SOL. And that's not true for Cassava or something, but be careful. Be careful. If you can't figure out how a company thinks it's going to make money, I personally shy away from those. Does that mean there's not money to be made there? No. But I don't think a lot of people legitimately make that money that way. I have my doubts.
I'm just gonna tell you guys real quick on that list of 25. No. 15 stocks under $25 I posted yesterday. 5 of those stocks I posted yesterday that you could have bought in the overnight market or this morning are in the top 25 daily price jumps today. And 0 of them are in the negative, downturn. So that's it's pretty nuts. List of that would be like QMCO, Kohler, RGTA, RGTI, and then Xcur. I mean, and I can keep going. Like it's pretty wild. Yeah, that's pretty wild that
Yeah.
After Hours was able to guess because I got those across After Hours. That wasn't just me. That was like me going to different posts, checking out other people's DDs, and I compiled a list, right? After Hours guessed it that correctly to where we landed it. And these companies are up 40%, 36%, 34%. None of them were under 30% in that list I just gave you. Like that's how
It's wild.
ridiculously on point. QMCO's up 124%. Color is up 80, KULR Technology Group is up 80%. Like that's just
Yeah. Now that one and
that's wild.
that one you had a news peg. So this is one of the interesting ones where Cooler, you had a news peg on. You knew they just signed a contract. This was an opportunity where on Friday, if you bought, you already knew that they were going to go up. Or you had a pretty good sense that they were going to go up. I sprung on that one. A couple others did. I did not bet big on it. I wish I had, because that was easily a 10-bagger today, and that was pretty fun. But there are opportunities lurking some of this stuff, and on After Hour, people are surfacing this stuff. Like I'm constantly surprised. I think there's sort of a secret sauce in getting a community of people together who all want to brag about how smart they are about this stuff, because you find that people share things that they wouldn't normally share, right? Like that they're actually people are giving away alpha freely on After Hours sometimes. So check it out and make sure you pay attention to it. Nikhil says, "I'm new to trading. Which platform is good to do tech analysis?" So, yeah, on the Robinhood charts tool is actually pretty good. If you use Robinhood, you can already start there, and you don't have to pay a fortune for it, right? I use TradingView, and I even pay extra for some features in TradingView. But for the most part, I don't use the fancy stuff. Like I've found over years and years, I spent a lot of time and money learning a lot of very complex technical analysis techniques early on. I wrote my own trading bots that were using signals from technicals for crypto in 2020 to 2022. I had those running, and it was fun. But primarily, I learned is that even some of the most sophisticated looking technical signals are really just ultimately abstractions against the premise that something that is going up in price will continue to go up generally, and something that is going down in price will generally continue to go down. And if that's all you're interested in, you can start with the basics and get a lot out of just, moving averages, RSI, stuff like that. And you learn that stuff, mess around with that stuff. You don't have to get too sophisticated. There's no magic bullet. Nothing's going to tell you how to trade. But if you understand what these say about the psychology of the people you're trading against, that can help. So start out, look at Robinhood. If you're a Robinhood user, look at TradingView. TradingView, you can get a lot of stuff for free. Nothing special.
So, to get into your strategy, what is your strategy when it comes to stocks and options trading? Like, what's your preferred method, and how did you somehow? I mean, obviously you have knowledge, right? Like everyone claims to have knowledge, but you 3x your portfolio in less than a year.
Yeah,
What
which
was
I
your
wish
process
was
behind that?
yeah, I wish that was a referendum on my capabilities. I wish it were, because I wish I were that brilliant consistently. But I am pretty consistent at beating the market narrowly in every year, and I haven't had a substantial down year yet because I manage my risk very carefully. My formula, it's a pretty simple formula, really. It is step one. Um, First of all, I am almost always doing this in a bullish direction, very rarely in a bearish direction. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but we'll just assume it's bullish for now. Step one is I have a list of about 30 to 50 stocks that I know really well. I know the businesses they're in, I know how they move, and I know what's happening to the companies and to the leadership of the company at any given moment. This is just ambient stuff that I have accumulated over time by watching the charts for these companies every morning. Sorry. Step two is I look for a company that's really beat up. I'll be right back.
Okay, no problem, buddy. So I'm gonna jump into my strategy. This is day zero, guys. If you haven't been introduced to me yet, this is my face. My name's Tyler. Nice to see you guys, right? Um, I just quickly on a
Sorry.
background. I started with $2,800. I turned it into well over 20 grand that I'm still playing with. And then I also play with my little brother's Robinhood account that I got at about $5,000. Right now it's sitting at around 7,700. It was down today. Sometimes you have an off day, but uh, most of his calls are up. It's just MicroStrategy and ASTS that are down currently. So we'll get those back up. But I'll let you get back into your strategy, and then after you're done, I'll get into mine.
Yeah. So, Jack, no, not Jack, Tony. Yes, that's day zero on After Hours speaking.
Yeah,
Um,
that was day.
and I am Gainal retentive on After Hour. So yeah, so step one, I have this list of stocks that I'm always monitoring that I understand pretty well. I think phase one, you have to understand intuitively what is going on with the company, or else you won't be able to make sense of the charts. You won't be able to make sense of what's happening with the price. Step two is that I wait for it to get beat up. And usually, this means slightly midterm RSI is below like 30. This is a classic signal of like something that's oversold. Generally speaking, there's a reason though, right? So then that's step 3. You look at why and you decide based on why. Is it beat up correctly? Is this a reasonable amount of drop for this thing, or is it truly oversold right now? And if it's truly oversold, if I think people have overestimated how bad the news was or whatever, then at that point, I look at my options to get in on it. And I sort of weigh the risk and reward. I might use simulator tools to understand this. I might just do it based on intuition for the thing. And then I will put in maximum about 2% of my total portfolio generally, maybe a little more, on this one thing in a leveraged position. So, a good example of this, the one I was using the other day, is we were talking about Target. Target had a dismal earnings call, right, where their strategy that they sort of pivoted to delivery only in a lot of ways, and they were basically becoming an amorphous, identical company like all of the other retailers. That was their whole thing that they leaned in on after a couple of lousy quarters a year or two ago, and it's not working out, right? And you saw that in their latest earnings call. This was maybe a week ago now. And I looked, and yeah, there we go, right? So they were 150, and then they down to 122, 123. That's not optimal. That is, I looked at that though, and I was like, this is a company that, in my estimation, based on the information that I can see, should be trading still around 140. So I bought 140 calls, and I bought them for March, and that gives me a lot of room on this thing to basically sit back and watch what happens. And if it goes bad, I'll cut ties. But so far, it's going really well, right? So often it's betting on these corrections where the market has emotionally reacted to something that's maybe not worth the reaction. You get this wrong as often as you get it right often. But you have to make sure that you treat this in a way that you manage your risk effectively, and you understand when your thesis has been invalidated, or you are willing to lose what you're willing to lose. So I bought March calls last week. They're up about 50% now, which I'm pretty, that's a pretty good for a week. But we'll see where things go from there. Yeah, Jake, great question. How do you know it's 140? I'm not going to go through my specific math now, but I got a spreadsheet for this, right? And I look at the sheet, and I sort of compute based on earnings, based on the direction of things. I've got formulas that sort of estimate where these companies are generally positioned, and often, you can just do a mental math with P/E even and estimate where they probably belong.
Right, and then also part of that is like when, especially right after earnings, when the uncertainty is really high, it'll tend to drop further than it should, and it'll be pretty obvious, like if you see it, and basically basing it on percentage compared to how much they missed the percentage on sales or whatever causing negative news. If the percentages are just not aligning and it just doesn't make sense, you can expect a trend reversal over a over a short period of time. Obviously, it depends on their actual financials and further situations for them over a longer time to have a different effect on that. But for short to medium term, you could expect a trend reversal depending on, not a large trend reversal, but in the caliber that he's saying. Like, I wouldn't see it going back up to 157 a week from now, you know what I mean? But over 2, 3 weeks, it'll start to leak back up because people start wanting that opportunity back. In
Mm-hmm.
anticipation for the next news and anticipation for the next earnings that they said they're gonna beat next time, so
Yeah.
definitely looking at that.
Anthony asks a good question. How do you get access to earnings calls and the like? Earnings calls you get access to, you get invited on to these generally just by being a shareholder. You can check your account messages and you'll see what you've got there. You can call into Mini and just say, you're a third party analyst or something. They'll let you listen. Generally, you don't get to ask questions. Don't try to ask questions. It's not worth your time to ask questions. There are plenty of short sellers and stuff there, and they've got their own points to make on those earnings calls. But I would suggest absolutely the number one thing that you can get comfortable using that will help you. Your alpha often with this stuff is that most retail traders are using Robinhood like a slot machine, right?
Yeah.
And if you're trading against retail, if you are actually doing any research at all, you have alpha. So, and this is sort of goes against a little bit my random walk thing, right? Which is, I maybe the market isn't that efficient anymore because of retail traders, but um, if so the number one website you should just get familiar with and make it your friend is Edgar, which is the SEC's filings website. You can go there and you can read straight out of the horse's mouth what these companies think about their earnings, what they think their current risks are. And of course, you got to get good at reading them. They don't read intuitively. Every company's sugarcoating it or they're hedging their bets with their language, stuff like that. But if you get good at reading earnings reports, you will notice things in them that only professionals are noticing. And this is very valuable potentially. So check this out. There are great videos on YouTube. Again, I would recommend looking at Plain Bagel, who's a professional investment analyst who does videos on YouTube as well. Has a couple of videos about understanding earnings and things like that. Yeah, Edgar Search, fantastic tool. A lot of this information is now surfaced in Robinhood and stuff like that when it's basic tabular information, but often the best stuff is offhand remarks deep in documents. You know, there have been times where you look through a document and you're like, oh my gosh, this company that looks like they're doing great is drowning in this special kind of debt that they'll be forced to do something about when their share price hits this number. That's huge information, right? That that's stuff that probably the professionals know and are trading against this stuff. But you know, you the retail folks don't know, and just because other people know doesn't mean it's always perfectly priced in. So you look for these catalysts by looking at publicly available information and combining it and figuring things out. You know, there are pros who will like do incredible things like hire teams to go out and count the number of cars on the lots at Carvana or whatever. You don't have to do that to get an edge. You can just do a little homework and you already are way ahead of everyone else.
Just to jump in, for earnings calls, if you use the trading platform Robinhood, and even if you don't, like you don't even have to own a single stock. What you can do is when their earnings call, like you can look up what time their earnings call. If you own the stock, it gives you a notification, and you just come on here, you click. There'll be an option on here. It'll say join earnings call. That's how easy it is on Robinhood. You don't even have to own the stock. You can just go on to Robinhood and click join earnings call. But if you do own the stock, it'll send you a notification specifically alerting you that it's going on. And then it'll ask you for your name and email. You can literally put John Doe, and then for the email, you can put johndoe@gmail.com. It does not make you do a confirmation or anything, and it puts you straight into the earnings call, just so that you guys are aware when it comes to Robinhood. So I do keep my
Yeah,
name and
that's a pretty good
everything
feature.
private when I do that, so I just skip all that and just do it that way. Same thing I do with hotel Wi-Fi.
All right. Well, I should let you go eventually, Mr. Zero.
Okay.
Mr.
Well, I
Mr.
appreciate you
Mr.
joining
Zero,
in
may I
on
call
me.
you Day?
You can call me Tyler. You can call me Day Zero. You can call me whatever
All
you
right.
want, man. I'm pretty chill. So, did you have anything else you wanted to ask me or say anything while we're live or?
No,
But
I mean it's fun. We covered a lot of ground. I don't know if people got what they want out of this, but it's fun.
yeah, it was
I hope
definitely
I didn't
fun.
make too big a fool of myself.
No, I think it's the opposite. A couple people were messaging me. They're like, "Who's the other guy in there? He sounds really intelligent." So I really do appreciate you coming on the onto the stream. And obviously, I did tag him on After Hours, so anyone that wants to see who is talking, because his name is kind of long, it is I have an at and I have his name on there. If you guys want to go follow him, uh, I'm sure he would appreciate it. But I'm sure you guys heard what he was saying and were like, "Oh my gosh," you know. So yeah, you guys feel free to go follow him as well.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, it was
a lot of
nice
fun.
talking to you, man. That was
Yeah.
a pretty intellectual conversation.
Yeah, and I got a couple ideas for folks that you should talk to. So I'll send you some names. I think you got a lot of fun people out there in the community who'd love to chat.
I think so too. I think we could make I think I could make a large thing out of this where we could just have not an after hours town hall because that's already being done, right? That's already like a separate thing. People with a lot more money than me running that stuff. But when it
Yeah.
comes to like analytical breakdowns and going into options trading topics, strategies, all that, I'd love to have anyone on that has a decent amount of knowledge. Obviously, like I will have to vet it to a certain extent unfortunately, just so that we don't have rookies training rookies. But uh, people of your stature and similar, I would love to have on,
Yeah,
and I'm
sounds
sure you'll
great.
give me a great name. So thank you and take care, brother.
It was a pleasure. Have a good one.
Yeah, no problem. Let me get off this Discord call, cut you loose. And everybody, this is day zero. Obviously, let's see who all we still got on here. Um, I've got the chat up now. Let's see. See if I can cut the screen or not so that you guys aren't sitting here having to view this. Screen capture. I want to cut that, but I don't know how. I'm still learning it. Mr. Million tabs from now on. Getting all this insane dude, bro, is too smart. Natural teachers, man. Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Day. Your Army? Yes, I am Army National Guard. The knowledge is insane. You guys are crazy. Thank you guys. I really want to shout out to you guys. That was such a great stream. I appreciate it, man. I really do appreciate everyone that joined in today. Does anyone have any quick questions for me before I let you go? Obviously, I'll break down my strategy, my option strategy real quick. What stocks tomorrow? I put out like 40 stocks on After Hour, my guy. If you're not on After Hour, it's a stock trading app. You don't have to create an account or anything. I mean, you do have to create an account, but you don't have to link anything. Um, and I'm not being paid to say that, so there's that. Thank you, good stream. So I am before I cut you guys loose, I'm gonna go over my options strategy real quick. It's absolutely monstrous, okay? It's monstrous. I'm not gonna lie. So just stick with me here. So say I was buying a target buy call. I would buy slightly below the money or slightly, basically an ATM call. That's what I'm doing. I'm buying an ATM call, not 4 days out. We'd probably be doing about March, but I'm not holding it to March. So we're holding this until it's up about 40, 50%, right? If not higher. One of these ATM calls. We're holding it until it's worth like double the price. Say the stock share price went up to $130. I'd sell those calls and buy literally at the money again. And then at the money again and at the money again. Uh, riding it all the way up. And then once it starts going down again and it's not no longer in this bullish trend, that's when I start cutting some money out. Like say I made 10x, right? Say I made 10x. I'd probably pull 8x of that out and then leave in 2x of the profits, so 80% out, 20% in of the profit. So that is a monstrous way to do it, and you can get screwed over really fast with that, especially with MicroStrategy. I did that with MicroStrategy as well, guys, and it went well. And thankfully, I pulled profits at the right time, which was probably about right here is when I pulled it out. And then I bought shares, and I was like, "Oh no, I bought shares, and it's still going up." And then it crashed, and I was like, "Thank God I pulled out." And that's how it happens every time for me. Like SMCI, same thing. Same thing. I sold all my calls and my puts. And I'm like, oh, why didn't I keep my put? Why did I sell my call? At first it was, why did I sell my call? And then it's like, why did I sell my put? And it was the same thing, guys. Literally the same thing. Let's see. It's about right here. I had a straddle play. Probably right here, actually, because I did profit off of it. Um, no, it was after that. Yeah, it was probably around here somewhere, like a really small straddle, but I expected more movement. Uh, and I was like, oh no, I sold my call, and then it started going up. Okay, so yeah, it was about right here, the straddle. I'm like, I sold my call and it's still going up, and then it crashed. And I'm like, oh man, that put I sold for a loss, I could have made so much money on. So, I mean, that gives you an example that I have no idea what I'm doing sometimes. Sometimes you just get lucky with the market. Joby Aviation, I'm gonna go through a couple of these real quick to see where they're at. 5 years ago, so Joby's doing really good. These electric VTOL companies, let's see, electric VTOL. I am gonna jump into the comments here in a second and see what you guys are saying. This stuff is on high demand right now. This is pretty crazy what's going on with this. Basically, air taxis that are electric. I mean, that's the future. I mean, screw electric cars, man. We've been talking about going into the skies for so long. Why are we sitting here stalking Tesla and stuff like that? eVTOL is probably a big market. How do you do covered calls? The ones that show up -1 on after hours, that's a covered call. Also, if people have questions about covered calls, I'd ask ChatGPT because it gives really good examples. Let's ask ChatGPT about covered calls. I'll do it for you guys on stream so that, because I can explain it, but it would be nice to have a reference rather than looking up someone's article, I'll just do this, right? Explain covered calls like I'm a middle schooler. Imagine you have a bunch of cool action figures that you own, and some of your friends are interested in borrowing them. You're okay with lending them out, but only if they promise to give them back in a certain amount of time and pay you a little bit of money for the rental. So that's a really good perspective. I mean, obviously, this is just the first iteration of ChatGPT, me throwing it up. Basically, you're renting out your shares, and they only get called away if they go in the money. So, let me go over here now. That's enough of the ChatGPT. So, say I own 100 shares of MSCU, right? I could go on here, I could sell a call, and right now the stock price is $186. Okay, I could sell it for $5,820 right here at $187. But the problem with that is that's a break even of $248. And I see the price going above that as it goes down, whatever. Uh, so you can scroll up, and the amount of risk that you want to have is literally up to you. Like, basically, the strike price is what you're selling the shares for. Price, that's the price of the share. If My bad, that's the price that shit. Okay, let's find a very specific one. So say it's $400. Say the share price goes up to $400. That's when you'd sell. So the contract, if it's at $400 though, wouldn't be worth $22 anymore. So you'd make all the premium off of the contract as well, which would be $2,200, I believe. Yeah, $2,200. Thank goodness it showed me on here because I would not have been completely sure about that. But if it's below that money, so say the stock share price is $390, 399.99, the contract's unexercisable and you keep the premium as well. So say the share price goes up to $480, you're missing out on money, but you're still selling your shares for $400 as opposed to $187. So I mean, realistically, if you're making that much profit in that short amount of time, literally 25 days, like that would probably be a good exit point anyways for your shares. So that is a quick example of covered calls. Sorry, I didn't have anything set up for that. Here's Chat GPT if you want to read that. Let me check the comments real quick. Just quadrupled my account in 2 weeks. Good job, Alex. So you're at 4x or at 40x? What's your ROI for the year? Mine, I'm at about 8x right now. I was previously over 10x earlier in the week, but obviously MicroStrategy crashed. Thoughts on Yield Max? Yield Max is fine. I mean, any kind of ETF is fine, honestly. Thank you. I threw some fun tickets at Kohler. Let's go over to that stock, Technology Group. So obviously it was up 70 over 78% in one day, which It's still only 80 cents, guys. Like that's the thing, right? It IPO'd at 272. So it might have been a little bit of a short squeeze as well. Like we might see the same trend as in April where it just then goes back down the next day by half of the stock price, but it's just dependent on the company's health going forward. Or you could see it going up to this previous point of 99 cents into a dollar. Is it going through a split anytime soon? That's a good question too, because it is not compliant right now with listing standards. Let's look that up. Let's see if color's going to. I mean, obviously I'm saying color, but it's just KULR. Split, reverse split. Let's see if it's going through a reverse split. It's contemplating a reverse split. Okay, so I have no idea because that's old. That's old. Not that's August 12th. That's already passed. I don't know. It's all from 2024 and stuff. It's contemplating a reverse split. So I have no idea. This data is all outdated. I'd have to look way farther into it. But they were contemplating it. They received a non-compliant notice earlier in the year. Looks like they might just closing of 2.875 million. That's 2 years ago. So I have no idea. It looks like they might just go above a dollar and problem will be solved. That's on QBTS. Let's look. Obviously, it's probably up. Oh no, it's not up today. The rest of Quantum's up today, but this one had already had a previous run. So, what looks like negative today, you need to start zooming out. It's performing a lot better than some of those other companies that we're just looking at in the last couple of years. Obviously, since IPO, it's crashed, but that was 2020 and 2022, and then it just had an IPO crash. I mean, it happens. Probably issuance of more stock or something. But it looks pretty healthy on the long term. It's above its previous cycles, it looks like. So yeah, it's on its uptrend. It's already past these other cycles, but it also might have had a little bit of short squeeze. You could see it going down as well a little bit, depending on how shorted it was. That's data that's publicly available. Let's see, through Fintel, etc. Check out FOSS. It's not on this exchange, so I'm going to skip it for now. I'll look at it on my own later. First, phosphate. What's a good amount of cash for a beginner? Beginning on stock, you can begin with a dollar, man. Like you could literally go to your favorite stock, like say you like eating at Cheesecake Factory, right? And you wanted to put a dollar in, you can during market hours you can buy a dollar fractional share for Cheesecake Factory. And it'll just go up with the percentage gain. So like say it goes up. Like in this month, it went up 13%. Your dollar would get 13%. So you'd earn 13 cents, 13.4 cents. Oh, yeah. KULR, yeah, I did get that Navy contract. I bought shares as well. Anything but they recommend conservative strategies when just starting out, avoid options. You can buy cheap options to learn it. Like you could buy a $5 option call on SPY or on something. I mean, like you can start off with really small money on options trading. Just don't get ahead of yourself too fast. I started with $160 a week ago and turned it into $700. Oh wow, you turned $160 into 700? That's pretty cool. And then you turned $950 into 1700. That's pretty nice, Alex. How to find newer stocks and companies to watch. The lower amount of money you're using as well, it tends to be more liquid because there's a lot of retail that's trading with that, and it's easier to screw over other retail traders than it is, and make money off of other retail than it is to make it off of institutions. How do you find newer stocks and companies to watch a trade? Usually after hours. I like sniping trades from other people. Like I'll just be honest, right? I'm not gonna lie to you guys ever. Just depends. FRSPF. It won't pull up on here, so I'm gonna skip it for now. But I'll screenshot that and get back to you. Do you also hold shares long term? Yes, on my main portfolio, yes, I do hold shares. I sell covered calls off of the shares to collect premium, but I'm holding the shares long term. You turned $10,000 into $236. That's crazy. Uh, Someone turned 1 million into zero 4 times. He also turned zero into $1 million times, to be fair. So this is just the my brother's portfolio. So obviously, man, it would have been nice to buy this at IPO. Phew, that was in a very short amount of time. From September to now, it's went up $162, which is about 700%. That's pretty nuts. Does anyone have any other questions before I cut the stream? Specific tickers or options, strategies, anything? Can y'all talk about taxes on the next stream? Yes, once I can get a guy that knows anything about taxes, I'll have him on. Obviously, I don't know much, but I'll definitely provide you guys with that resource. And I'll title the stream because I know not everyone's going to be, tuning in live to every single one. I'll title the stream like tax expert or something so that you guys know what's going on. Would you guys also like me to clip certain parts of the stream and turn them into like short form videos so that you guys, with graphics and stuff, so you guys have that available too without having to go looking for it through hours of streams? That would be awesome. Turned 2,800 to almost 50K. Yeah, that was nuts. Asking the right question. Where's Rocco? Yeah, Rocco. We'll do that for sure. I'll get a tax expert on here eventually. Obviously, I have to find one on after hours first, but that's a resource we can provide, hopefully, on my channel and on the streams. I'm also going to make videos with graphics and uh, to try to get. So basically, like I'll let you guys know what the game plan is. I put it on after hours earlier. Basically, my game plan is to make money not off of you guys, obviously, not trying to charge you guys money for advice or for anything like that, because I'm not even that great, right? I'm just trying to have people on and have fun, making money myself, and making money with friends the cool way. So I don't want to charge $5 membership fees and shit like that. Sorry for my cussing if you have kids around. I'll try to do better with that. But my goal is to make money off of ad revenue just through like YouTube, honestly, to then put back in the stock market in a little fund. So nothing crazy. Eventually, I would like to make a decent amount of money to where I could do it full time, on top of my normal job, which I'm hopefully going to the Border Patrol here soon. We'll see how that works. Short form would be good. Yeah, I'll definitely put in some videos. My problem is I'm not great at editing, but I will go ahead and start cutting the stream here, guys. I hope you guys had a great day. Make sure to go check out my profile as well as go follow the other guy that was just on here. I will have his name here in a second for you guys, but I also did put it on the post I made on After Hours. So it is Gaynal Retentive. So it's GAYNALRETENTIV, and I'll put it in the chat as well. Oh wait, I can send a link. I'll send a link to his profile actually. That makes more sense. into chat, and then I'm gonna cut it. We almost doubled his followers, by the way, guys. It's nuts. Yeah, hopefully I do get the ad revenue soon, but yeah, I think that's a lot better than asking for donations and sitting there begging people for money. I like to save face and keep it more professional than that. So uh, yeah, no problem, guys. There's his profile over on After Hours. Click that link, go give him a follow or a like or a comment or something, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.